Hello, this video is going to be on alkene nomenclature. So for naming alkenes, we use the same rules as alkanes, but we're going to change the suffix to be "ene" instead of "ane. And we also need to look and see if we need to name it with the cis-trans and EZ system. So let's start with the first rule, which is to find the longest carbon chain that contains the functional group. With alkanes, we didn't have to worry about contains the functional group. So the longest carbon chain that has the functional group in it is all the carbons here. And it looks like there's no branches on this one, so that makes it a little easier. We've just got 5 carbons in a row. Now we need to number the longest carbon chain from one end or the other end so that the double bond is at a lower number. If we start at the bottom here, it would be 1, 2, 3. If we start at the top, it'd be 1, 2. So we start at the top and make the double bond after the 2 carbon between the 2 and the 3. So this will be carbon 5. So we know it's a pent, but it's a pentene instead of a pentane. So there's an E here instead of an A because it's got a double bond in it. Alkenes contain at least one carbon-carbon double bond. Okay, there's no branches, so we don't have to say like 2-methyl, but we do need to say where the double bond is, and it's between the 2 and the 3 carbon, and we just use the 2. So we say it's a 2-pentene. Alternatively, we could say that is a pent-2-ene. Sometimes books use that way. That's kind of a newer way. Most things, including your sapling homework, is going to choose the first way. Now, we're not quite done, actually, because we need to say whether it is a cis-2-pentene or a trans-2-pentene. So let's back up and let's look at our naming with cis or trans or with E and Z. Let's do E and Z. So remember, you find the carbons that are doubly bonded and you put boxes around them, and then you make this dotted line that follows the direction of the double bond. And you look at your first boxed carbon. It should have 2 single bonds to 2 atoms. There's an H and a C. The C wins, so circle it. It has a bigger atomic number, higher number. And if we look at the second boxed, it should have 2 single bonds, 2 atoms, H and C. So C wins. Now notice we didn't even look down here. We didn't even pay attention to anything else. We just compared the H to the C. And we didn't circle the H because it didn't win for the higher number. So now we look and see our circled numbers. Are they on the same side of that dotted line or on opposite sides? This one's to the right, this one's to the left, so they're on opposite sides. And since they're on opposite sides, they're not on the same side, so we'll have to remember it's E. I think I'll do that in the same color. Switch back to that other color. So we put a capital E in parentheses and then another hyphen, hyphens between letters and numbers. Okay, so that's, 2-pentene. That is the correct name. Now, if we're going to do cis and trans, notice that we start on this side, we go through the double bond, and we go out on the other side. So since they're on 2 different sides, we could also call this, if we use the cis-trans way, it would be a trans-2-pentene. So sometimes a question will ask for cis-trans name, and the other time they'll just say for an IUPAC name. So IUPAC would be E2-pentene. All right, let's go on to this next one. Now we've got some branches. We need to look at the longest carbon chain that contains the functional group. So that would be going along like this for the longest carbon chain. Notice we've got a couple of methyl groups. We need to number the longest carbon chain so the double bond gets the lower number. So like this. So it's 6, so it's going to be a hexene, and it's going to be a 1-hexene because the double bond is between 1 and 2. It's after the 1 carbon. And we've got 2 methyl groups, so it's going to be dimethyl, and those methyl groups are on the 3 carbon and the 4 carbon, the longest carbon chain, so it's 3,4 dimethyl, dimethyl 1-hexene. Okay, now we need to decide, do we need to use cis and trans? So to figure out if it's cis and trans, let's draw out these hydrogens here. So I'm going to erase those hydrogens, and we're going to draw them out. There are 2 hydrogens on this carbon. They look like that. And so if we follow the rules, we put a box around both of the doubly bondeds and we look at the atoms that are attached. And if the atoms are the same, then we can't say whether they're on the same, so we can't circle one or the other. So this is actually neither. And so we don't have to name it with RRS or cis or trans. So there we have the whole name, 3,4 dimethyl 1-hexene. Don't forget the 1. Even though it's a 1, we have to say that the double bond is not between 2 and 3. It's not a 2-hexene, it's a 1-hexene. All right, let's do the next one here. Now this one has 2 double bonds in it. Oh my. Okay, so if you look at the last model in Chem Activity 6C, I think it's model 13, it tells you how to name alkenes when there's 2 or 3 double bonds. And since there's 2 double bonds in this molecule, we're going to name it as a diene. And that's kind of weird looking. There's an extra weird A in there. We need to number it so from one under the other so that the double bonds get the smallest set of numbers, but it doesn't matter because they're on the ends. So what we look for to break the tie is where this methyl group is attached. And we want it to have the smallest number. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If we did it the other way, the double bonds would still be between 1 and 2 and 6 and 7, but the methyl group would be at a higher number. Okay, so I think I'll start out with the methyl. The methyl is on the 3rd carbon, so it's 3-methyl. And then we need to say where the double bonds are. And they're after carbon 1. They're between 1 and 2, so 1. And they're between 6 and 7. So we use the lower number, so it's 1, 6 is where the double bonds are. And then we write, it's 7 carbons long, so that's hept. And then we add this adiene. Now in your book, in your workbook, it actually shows, and on the handout that I put up on Canvas for how to name alkenes, it actually shows that the numbers are inserted right here. It's hept 1, 6, or no, they're inserted right here after the A. It's hepta 1, 6 diene, and that is a common way to name them, but when I tried that on sapling, it didn't work. So sapling is going to ask for this name. Do we need to put an R or S in front or a cis or trans? Well, whenever a double bond is on the end, that means it's got 2 hydrogens, and since those hydrogens are identical, that's neither. This one's also on the end. If we draw in our hydrogens, you can see those are on the end, so that's a neither. We don't need a cis or trans or an R or S in this case. So the answer would be 3-methyl 1,6-heptadiene. This should help you with your sapling homework. And I hope that it helps you to understand and learn alkene nomenclature. Have a good day.